I'm just like, I don't know. I like the idea of plugins. I think that they're useful.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely like team analog all the way.
Hey, Jess here. I am in Nashville, Tennessee with mastering engineer Raelynn Janicke.
Hi.
There she is. I'm gonna call her Ray because I can't say her last name. You are a mastering engineer.
Yes.
What do you do?
So it's my job to take a mix that I'm given and make sure that it's compatible across all platforms, whether it be vinyl or streaming services, and keep in mind that they already kind of have a vision for it and just make sure it's good for everybody else. I'm also responsible for all the digital side of it as well.
Like the metadata and that kind of junk?
Yeah, metadata, that kind of stuff.
Not that it's junk.
Love metadata.
Metadata.
But it's just like sequencing the album as well, like doing fades, coding, all that kind of stuff.
So when it comes to, mastering for different mediums, say vinyl versus digital, do you approach those two differently?
So vinyl versus like streaming services, yes. In general, streaming services, like I think Spotify and iTunes, it's like -16 LUFS and -14, so it's like all within that same window. So with that, when we're mastering, like that's all pretty much in that window anyway. So we're not so much worried about mastering for streaming services like separately. So mastering for vinyl is really different. So with the grooves that are on the actual like disc itself, you can't have really high highs and you can't have really low lows. And the duration of time that you have on the side of the disc is also really important. So if you're sequencing like for a CD that's going out digitally, your time duration doesn't matter. That could be from now until the end of time. Vinyl, you could theoretically have a half an hour on one side of a disc, but the quality is gonna suffer because you're just cramming all of that information in. So it's really important with vinyl that you kind of try and have it be equivalent on both sides time-wise and to keep it within like a proper window for what your content is.
All right, so what song, whose song is this?
So this song is called Desperate. It's by my friend John the Dropout, and it's a collab he did with Abigail Rose. But yeah, if y'all wanna give it a listen, this is Bypass, so this is just the mix that I got. So things that I'm noticing, like definitely like right off the bat, are that her vocals are definitely present, but they're kind of pushed back under all of the bass that's happening. So bringing her vocals out is definitely something that I want to do, and kind of containing the bass more so that it's not so pillowy, and just kind of so it's contained, but it's still like present. All right. So this is me. I'm just gonna turn the bass down like half a dB, and it just kind of contains everything a little bit, for sure. So all of our mastering is done analog, so we don't use any plugins at all.
Nice.
But my favorite piece of gear, Prism Sound, makes an EQ that's a 4-band EQ that's 4 mid and 4 side, that you can set it up that way. But it's called the MEA2, and it is like the most surgical EQ ever, and it's just like we don't really work in more than like, unless it's very necessary, half dB increments. So it's like you can hear that difference.
That's amazing.
And it's
half a dB.
I'm
That's
like,
incredible.
I would gladly.
So that's your jam.
Oh my God, use that on anything.
Nice.
So this band, so this is the EQ, this is the mid and the side. So this is everything in the middle. So this is like your bass, your kick, your vocal, and then your top end stuff. So it's kind of surgical in that way. So this band, the second band, is usually what I'll do. A lot of the times with like vocals and bass or guitar and bass, that's kind of where things get muddy and overlap. So this is kind of creating a space in between. So to kind of show you that. So if I just kind of crank this up, there's a little bit of like muddiness in her voice. And that's like just cutting it back a little bit gives it like a little bit of room for everything to kind of have its own space. And another thing I'm definitely gonna do next is with her vocal, just kind of manipulating that. Usually I'll end up just boosting like a general kind of mid-range area. So usually like 1K to like 1K4 is usually where I'll boost it up a little bit just to kind of give good mid-range. But for this song in particular, her vocals in the chorus get kind of nasally. So if I kind of boost that just to exaggerate it so you can hear it. It's just a little bit nasally. So instead of kind of boosting that in the middle, I want to cut that specific frequency out.
Yeah.
So the top band right here, this is your Q. So that's like how wide or how narrow. And I just want to keep that pretty narrow to contain it. And then I just want to cut it a little bit so it warms it up. Gives her more of like a roundness in her voice. It's not as nosy.
So, as a mastering engineer, how do you feel about AI platforms that claim to master music?
I feel like it's the same kind of thing where people are trying to just use like in-the-box normalization for everything, and it just doesn't work on everything. Like I feel like mastering is a thing that like you need very attentive ears for specific things that you can only train AI to do so much. Like I very much think that technology is a great tool to have, but I don't think that it's something that's practical in every single case. I feel like there are definitely things that it would be great for, but it's just, I feel like it's kind of just putting a blanket over everything and being like, that's fine, that sounds great. And then it's like, no, like, and who doesn't want that like human contact to it where you're like, I love doing this, like, let me make this better for you.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's the whole part of it, is being able to hand your baby off to someone else and being like, here, like, make this better.
Yeah.
I feel like that's another part of making music and the whole point that people do it, you know? With music like that, like, you don't want to completely kill the bass. You just want to contain it. And a lot of the times, too, mastering is just, like, knowing frequencies. So, like, when I was listening to it and just kind of hearing where it was sitting, like, I know it's going to be, like, the 71 to, like, 84 within the bands on there, just because that's usually where the sweet spot is. But it's like you want to kind of find that treble frequency and just cut it instead of being like, I'm just going to find the good note in the bass and boost the hell out of it. You want to be like, let me find the treble one, get rid of it, and the normal one will stand out without you having to push it forward. So that's the thing, too, with, like, her vocals, is that usually I'll just boost mid-range and you get everything that's in there, like the keys and the snare that's in there.
Right.
But it was just her vocal, just something with where it was, like, sitting, just doing a general mid-frequency boost wasn't going to work. So that's why I pushed it up in the L2, just kind of giving more of a mid-range push to the middle without accentuating that part of her voice. It's a lot of just like really meticulous things.
You're good. Like, shit. It's really all about frequencies and just your ear.
Yeah. And I think too, like, because I grew up playing music and I've been singing my life and I have a really strong theory background too. It's like all of that stuff
comes into play.
Yeah.
How do you know when a master is finished?
So I feel like a lot of the reason that I do choose to do mastering over mixing is because with mixing, like, you can spend hours dedicating all of your attention and drive to something and then having it still be like 12 hours later and being like, this is terrible. But with mastering, like, I feel like it's you sit there and you're trained to look for such specific things that it's like you can hone in on it, especially with that EQ that we have. Like, you can hone in on it and just cut it and fix it like immediately. So it's like, I feel like once you can sit there, and a lot of the times I'll just passively listen and just like close my eyes, and if nothing bothers me, then that's like when I know.
I mean, do you find that, like, with the state of the industry of everybody doing everything themselves, that it makes your job a lot harder as a mastering engineer?
Yes and no. Just like with the level and things like that, just people kind of not knowing what to be sending me.
Yeah.
And just like sound quality too, like getting a mix that's like you can very clear was like tracked professionally versus like in someone's bedroom where they had their fan on in the background and there's a plane going overhead. Right. Just like stuff like that. But it's like our whole thing is you're a part of the band and like that's what someone is giving you as their image, and you're just there to make it better. Like, you're not there to change it and judge what they've done. Like, you're just supposed to make their dream better.